The Watchers in the Dark. The Galactic Consortium had observed Earth for 7 centuries. Senior observer Telex adjusted his multi-spectrum scanner, focusing on the blue-green planet rotating below his cloaked observation vessel. After 30 years studying this world, he still found these humans fascinating, if primitive. Their civilization had progressed from burning coal to basic digital technology in the blink of a cosmic eye, yet they remained hopelessly bound to their planet, squabbling over resources and ideologies. Final assessment ready for transmission. Asked his assistant, Mara, her scaled skin shimmering under the soft lights of the observation deck. Nearly complete, Telex replied, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence as he finalized his report. Just reviewing their cultural archives one last time. The data streams flowed across his neural interface, human literature, art, philosophy, and mythology from across their civilizations. Warriors who could level mountains with a single blow. Gods who controlled weather and sea. Heroes who tricked death itself. Dragons, phoenix, titans, endless fantastical creatures that never existed. Such imagination, Telex noted with a mixture of amusement and pity. They create these elaborate mythologies. Impossible heroes performing impossible feats, perhaps to compensate for their biological limitations. Mara scrolled through images of human superheroes, ancient gods, and legendary figures. Do you think it holds them back? This fixation on the impossible? Undoubtedly, Telex replied, finalizing his assessment with a wave of his hand. They waste creative energy on flights of fancy rather than practical innovation. Their obsession with these myths suggests a species unable to fully embrace rational scientific progress. The report floated in the air between them, holographic text summarizing 500 Earth years of human development. Species, human, Sol 3. Technology level, pre-stellar, class 4. Development trajectory, standard with notable cultural anomalies. Recommendation, continued observation. Estimated time frame for potential contact, 150 to 200 standard years. Transmitting to Consortium archives, Mara confirmed. Telex gazed once more at the planet below. Fascinating creatures, really. Such potential, if only they could move beyond their superstitions and fantasies. As the observation vessel prepared to depart Earth orbit, neither Telex nor any other Consortium observer noticed the small, apparently derelict satellite fragment that had drifted near their ship. A fragment containing advanced sensor technology that had recorded everything. Dr. Elena Chen examined the data for the 5th time, her hands trembling slightly as she scrolled through the alien transmission. "This changes everything," she whispered. General Williams leaned forward across the conference table, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic displays. "You're certain this is authentic? Not some elaborate hoax?" "The quantum signature is unlike anything produced on Earth," Elena confirmed. "And the transmission protocols, they're beyond our current understanding. This is real, General. We've been watched for centuries." Around the table, the 12 members of Project Sentinel, Earth's ultra-classified response to the discovery of alien observation, absorbed this revelation. For 50 years, since detecting the first alien presence in orbit, they had worked in absolute secrecy, analyzing recovered alien technology and preparing humanity for a truth governments had decided humanity wasn't ready to know. And these Consortium observers, they think we're primitive dreamers, mused Dr. Kabir Singh, the project's chief engineer, centuries away from joining their galactic community. Elena nodded. They classified us as pre-stellar, trapped by our mythological thinking. They've essentially written us off. General Williams' laugh was without humor. If they only knew. On the wall behind him, schematics appeared, spacecraft designs that borrowed from recovered alien technology, but followed paths no alien engineer had considered. Propulsion systems that bent space-time in ways the Consortium deemed theoretically impossible. Defensive systems that drew inspiration from ancient human myths of invulnerability. For 50 years, Project Sentinel had been reverse engineering alien tech while hiding humanity's true progress. The discovery that they were considered harmless primitives had been their greatest advantage. "How soon until the Aurora is ready?" Williams asked. Kabir brought up new schematics, a sleek vessel unlike anything humans had publicly acknowledged building. 6 months. We've solved the final issues with the Mobius drive. The gravitational shielding draws more power than we'd like, but it works. Elena looked around the table. Are we really doing this? First contact on our terms. Williams nodded gravely. We've always known this day would come. Better to meet them as equals than wait until they decide we're ready. They're going to be quite surprised, said Dr. Sofia Nazari, the project's cultural liaison. Their report dismisses our mythological thinking as a weakness, but it's precisely that thinking that led us to solutions their science never considered. Williams stood, his decision made. Accelerate final preparations. In 6 months, Project Aurora goes public. It's time to introduce humanity to the stars, and the stars to humanity. High Counselor Viridian struggled to maintain his composure as the emergency session of the Consortium Central Council descended into chaos. Representatives of 17 spacefaring species shouted over each other, demands for explanation drowning out calls for calm. Order. He finally thundered, his voice amplified by the chamber's acoustics. We will have order. The chamber fell silent, thousands of eyes from diverse species focusing on him. The situation is unprecedented, Viridian acknowledged. But panic serves no one. Observer Telex, please repeat your report for those who arrived late. Telex stepped forward, visibly uncomfortable at the center of this diplomatic storm. 27 standard hours ago, a vessel of unknown design appeared in orbit around Outpost Station Gamma 9. The vessel transmitted identification signals identifying it as the UES Aurora from Earth. When challenged, the vessel's commander requested diplomatic recognition and formal first contact protocols. Impossible, shouted a Zenaran representative, chidness limbs clicking in agitation. Earth is a pre-stellar civilization. This must be some mistake or hoax. I wish it were, Telex replied. I have personally verified the vessel's point of origin. It is indeed from Earth, and its technology. Its technology exceeds our current understanding in several key areas. New images appeared above the council floor. A sleek vessel with curves that seemed to bend in impossible ways, propulsion systems that defied conventional analysis, and weaponry that, while inactive, suggested destructive potential beyond its size. How? Demanded Counselor Xan of the Machidian Collective. How did they advance so quickly without detection? Telex's 4 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of extreme distress in his species. Unknown. My last assessment showed them centuries away from achieving interstellar travel. Yet here they are. Viridian raised a hand for silence before the chamber could erupt again. What do they want? Formal diplomatic recognition, Telex replied. And, he hesitated, a revision to their classification status. They object to being categorized as pre-stellar or limited by mythological thinking. They specifically referenced those terms from my assessment report. A cold silence fell over the chamber. They've been intercepting our transmissions, Viridian realized aloud. For how long? Telex could only spread his hands in helpless uncertainty. There's more, he added reluctantly. They've requested an audience with the full council. Their ship is. It's already en route to Consortium Prime. They'll arrive in 3 days. Captain Maya Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UESS Aurora, Earth's first official interstellar vessel, watching the approaching space station grow larger on the view screen. Consortium Prime, heart of the galactic community that had watched Earth for centuries, never suspecting humans were watching back. Nervous, Captain? Asked Dr. Elena Chen, who stood beside her as the mission's scientific advisor. Wouldn't you be? Maya replied with a slight smile. We're about to rewrite galactic history. The Aurora glided toward the massive station, a marvel of engineering with graceful spires and rotating rings housing representatives from 17 spacefaring civilizations. As they approached, Maya could see the observation vessels scrambling to position themselves around the station, recording this historic moment. "They're hailing us," reported Communications Officer Patel. Maya straightened her uniform. On screen, the face that appeared was alien. 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, bluish skin, and no visible nose. But the expression of barely concealed shock was unmistakable. "Earth Vessel Aurora, this is Consortium Prime Control. Your approach vector has been validated. Proceed to Docking Bay 17. Representatives will meet you there." "Acknowledged, Consortium Prime," Maya replied formally. "We look forward to establishing diplomatic relations." As the transmission ended, Maya turned to her crew. 20 humans chosen to represent Earth in this historic moment, a carefully selected cross-section of humanity's diversity. "Well," she said, "let's not keep them waiting." The reception committee was larger than protocol suggested. Representatives from at least 12 species stood in the docking bay, curiosity and apprehension evident in their postures. At their center stood a tall, dignified figure Maya recognized from intelligence briefings as High Counselor Viridian. As Maya led her delegation down the Aurora's ramp, she felt the weight of history on her shoulders. First official human contact with alien life. The moment humanity stepped onto the galactic stage. Captain Rodriguez, Viridian, greeted her, pronouncing the human name with surprising accuracy. "On behalf of the Galactic Consortium, I welcome you to Consortium Prime." Maya inclined her head respectfully. "Thank you, High Counselor. On behalf of the United Earth Governments, I bring greetings and a request for formal diplomatic recognition." The formal pleasantries continued as they moved from the docking bay to a grand reception hall. Maya introduced her key staff. Dr. Chen, Security Chief Kagawa, Cultural Liaison Dr. Nazari, noting the aliens' subtle reactions to each human. Their differences in appearance seemed to confuse some of the aliens, who perhaps expected humans to look more uniform. Finally, seated at a massive circular table, the real discussions began. "I must address the unexpected nature of your arrival," Viridian said carefully. "Our records indicate your species is pre-stellar, yet here you are with technology that appears to exceed even our current capabilities in some areas. This is unprecedented." Maya exchanged glances with Elena before responding. "With respect, High Counselor, your records were based on what we allowed your observers to see." A ripple of murmurs passed through the alien delegation. "For over 50 Earth years, we've been aware of your observation posts," Maya continued. "We detected your vessels, intercepted your transmissions, and even recovered fragments of your technology from orbital accidents." "Impossible," whispered one alien representative. "Our cloaking technology is quite effective," Elena interjected smoothly, "against observers who don't know what to look for. But once we knew you were there." "You've been watching us watch you," Viridian concluded, his voice mixing awe and concern. Maya nodded. "We decided that when we finally stepped onto the galactic stage, we would do so as equals, not as a species deemed ready by outside judgment." Viridian seemed to consider this carefully before responding. "Your achievement is remarkable and concerning in equal measure. It suggests a level of deception. Self-preservation," Maya corrected. "Your own protocols classify civilizations and limit their rights accordingly. We simply ensured we would receive the classification we deserve." The atmosphere in the room had grown tense, suspicion mingling with reluctant admiration. "There remains the question of your technology," said a mechanoid representative. "Our preliminary scans of your vessel suggest propulsion and defensive systems that operate on principles we consider problematic." Elena smiled. "You mean impossible?" "Yes, we're aware of the Consortium's theoretical limitations regarding space-time manipulation and gravitational shielding. We simply found different pathways to the same destination." "How?" demanded another representative. "Perhaps." Dr. Nazari spoke for the first time, her voice calm and measured. It has something to do with our mythological thinking that observer Telex found so limiting. All eyes turned to Telex, who sat uncomfortably at the far end of the table. You see, Nazari continued, what you dismissed as primitive fantasy, we call imagination. The ability to envision what does not yet exist. Our impossible heroes inspired us to reach beyond conventional limitations. The silence that followed was profound, broken finally by Viridian. It seems, he said carefully, that the consortium has much to reconsider regarding human potential. As the meeting continued into discussions of formal recognition and diplomatic protocols, a tension remained beneath the cordial exchanges. Humanity had arrived unexpectedly, hiding their true capabilities until the moment of revelation. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted overnight, and this was only the beginning. Echoes of impossibility. 3 years after humanity's dramatic entrance onto the galactic stage, Admiral Javelin stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, Earth's first major off-world diplomatic hub. Below him stretched the vast orbital shipyards where Earth's growing fleet took shape, each vessel incorporating technologies that continued to confound consortium engineers. "Magnificent, aren't they?" asked a voice behind him. Zhao turned to find High Counselor Viridian approaching, his 4 eyes taking in the bustling construction. "High Counselor," Zhao greeted him with a respectful nod. "I didn't expect you until tomorrow's conference." "I arrived early," Viridian replied, his gaze fixed on the shipyards. "I wanted to see this for myself." He gestured toward a nearly completed vessel, sleeker and more advanced than even the Aurora had been. "The Prometheus." "Yes," Zhao confirmed. "Our newest explorer class. She'll be ready for her shakedown cruise next month." Viridian was silent for a moment, studying the ship. 3 years, he finally said. 3 years since your Aurora appeared at Gamma 9. The consortium thought we were witnessing first contact with a newly spacefaring race. Instead, we were witnessing the emergence of a power that had been developing in secret for decades. Zhao didn't respond immediately. Relations with the consortium remained complex, a mixture of cautious cooperation, technological exchange, and thinly veiled suspicion. "Is that why you came early, Counselor?" "To remind me of our deception." Viridian turned all 4 eyes to him. "I came to warn you, Admiral. Not all members of the consortium have embraced humanity's rapid emergence. There are factions that see your kind as a potential threat. We've honored every treaty," Zhao replied. "Shared technologies, established joint scientific ventures, and continue to develop weapons and defensive systems that operate on principles some find unsettling." Viridian interrupted. "The Salari Directorate in particular has been vocal about their concerns." Zhao knew the Salari well, a highly militarized species whose rigid hierarchical society emphasized order and predictability above all else. Human innovation and rapid adaptation represented everything they distrusted. "What are you suggesting, Counselor?" "Exercise caution," Viridian replied. "Directorate Supreme Commander Krex will attend tomorrow's conference. His presence is unusual." He glanced once more at the shipyards. "And perhaps consider keeping your newest advancements less visible." Before Zhao could respond, Viridian had turned and walked away, leaving the Admiral alone with the implications of his warning. The diplomatic conference chamber was designed to showcase the best of human aesthetic sensibilities. Warm wood panels contrasting with cutting-edge technology, high ceilings letting in the starlight, comfortable accommodations for 17 different species' physiological needs. Today, however, its beauty was overshadowed by the tension filling the air as Supreme Commander Krex of the Salari Directorate took the floor. "Honored representatives," Krex began, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the lights, compound eyes sweeping the assembled diplomats. "For 3 cycles, we have witnessed the unprecedented integration of humanity into interstellar affairs. Their contributions in medicine, art, and theoretical physics have been noted." Admiral Zhao, seated beside Earth's chief diplomat Amara Okafor, recognized the careful pause. a deliberate minimization of human achievements. However, Krex continued, mandibles clicking for emphasis. We cannot ignore the military implications of their technological development. Human vessels now incorporate systems that operate beyond conventional physical parameters, systems with potential applications that could destabilize the balance of power established by the Consortium Treaty. Amara leaned forward. The treaty guarantees all recognized species the right to self-defense and technological advancement. Commander, we have violated no provisions. The treaty, Krex replied coldly, was not written with humans in mind. Your methods of advancement follow unpredictable patterns. Your ships employ technologies deemed theoretically impossible by Consortium science until recently. This creates uncertainty. Zhao noted how several representatives shifted uncomfortably. Uncertainty was precisely what disturbed the Acceleri most, and they weren't alone. What exactly are you proposing, Commander? Asked High Counselor Viridian, his tone carefully neutral. Krex's mandibles clicked again. The Directorate proposes a security protocol, a temporary limitation on human military expansion, while a comprehensive assessment of their technologies is conducted. For the safety of all, the chamber erupted in murmurs. What Krex suggested amounted to forcing humanity to open all its military advancements to inspection, while halting further development, effectively placing Earth at a strategic disadvantage. Amara's response was diplomatic but firm. Earth appreciates the Directorate's concern for galactic security. However, we must decline any protocol that would selectively restrict human advancement while leaving other species' military development unchecked. This is not a request, Ambassador, Krex replied, all pretense of diplomatic courtesy falling away. The Directorate, along with the Machidian Collective and Xenaran Concord, have already approved the protocol. It requires only the Council's ratification. Zhao felt a cold understanding settle over him. This wasn't a proposal. It was an ultimatum backed by the three most militarized factions in the Consortium. Viridian seemed to realize this as well. This body cannot force compliance from a sovereign member without due process, Commander. Earth has the right to present its case before any vote. Of course, Krex conceded with false graciousness. The Council shall reconvene in 7 standard days for Earth's response and the vote. His compound eyes fixed on Zhao and Amara. Choose wisely, humans. The galaxy's patience with your unpredictability has limits. They're afraid of us, Dr. Elena Chen said, pacing the secure conference room aboard Harmony Station. 3 years ago, they thought we were primitive dreamers. Now they're trying to contain us. Around the table sat Earth's emergency response team. Admiral Zhao, Ambassador Okafor, Dr. Chen, Security Director Kagawa, and a holographic projection of General Williams from Earth Command. It's more than fear, Amara replied thoughtfully. The Acceleri operate on absolute certainty. Their entire society is built on rigid hierarchies and predictable outcomes. We represent chaos to them, a species that advances through intuitive leaps rather than linear progression. Advance all you want, Kagawa muttered. Just don't build better weapons than ours. That's what this is really about. Williams' hologram leaned forward. What are our options? Diplomatically, we're isolated, Amara admitted. We've made allies, but none powerful enough to stand against the Acceleri coalition. If the vote passes, we either comply with their protocol or face sanctions. Or worse, Zhao added grimly. Intelligence suggests the Directorate has been repositioning its fleet. 30 warships have moved to within 1 jump of Harmony Station in the past week alone. A heavy silence fell over the room. They're preparing for our refusal, Williams realized. Zhao nodded. And we have 8 vessels currently operational. Even with our technological edge, those aren't odds I take. So we need a third option, Elena said. She activated the room's holographic display, bringing up schematics for a system the engineering team had been developing. Project Daedalus. Williams leaned closer. The adaptive defense grid. It's still theoretical. Not anymore, Elena replied. We've solved the quantum entanglement issues. The system can be deployed within 72 hours. Kagawa studied the schematics. Even if it works, it's defensive only. It doesn't solve our numerical disadvantage if they decide to attack. No, Zhao agreed, but it might give us time to implement Chimera Protocol. Every head turned toward him. Chimera is untested outside simulations, Williams objected. The power requirements alone are within our capabilities now, Zhao interrupted. Thanks to Dr. Chen's team. What exactly is Chimera Protocol? Amara asked, looking between them. Elena brought up new schematics, complex formations showing impossible maneuvers and energy signatures that defied conventional physics. Traditional space combat operates on predictable vectors, Zhao explained. Newtonian physics dictates how vessels move, how weapons track targets. Chimera doesn't. It's inspired by ancient Earth mythology, Elena added. The chimera was a creature composed of different animal parts, impossible by natural law, but powerful in imagination. This protocol applies the same principle to space combat. The display showed Earth vessels executing maneuvers that should tear them apart, appearing to be in multiple locations simultaneously, bending sensor readings to create illusions. It's deception on a fundamental level, Zhao continued. Our ships will appear to break the laws of physics as the consortium understands them. Their targeting systems, their tactical computers, all programmed on predictable physical constants, will fail. Amara studied the display with growing understanding. You're going to make our ships move like the heroes in our myths. The impossible made real. Exactly, Elena confirmed. What they dismissed as primitive fantasy will become their tactical nightmare. William's hologram looked troubled. The strain on the ships and crews would be extreme. We've never attempted these maneuvers outside simulations. Better than surrender or destruction. Zhao replied quietly. We need to prepare for the worst while Amara pursues diplomatic solutions. Amara nodded slowly. I'll continue negotiations, but she gestured to the display. Prepare your miracle, Admiral. I suspect we'll need it. 7 days later, Admiral Zhao stood on the bridge of the UESS Prometheus, Earth's newest and most advanced vessel. Through the view screen, he could see Harmony Station surrounded by an unnerving number of alien warships, the Xalari making their presence felt before the Council's vote. Status report, he ordered quietly. Daedalus grid is online and undetected, reported his tactical officer. All Earth vessels are in position, running silent. Chimera Protocol is loaded into the central command system. Zhao nodded. On the station, Ambassador Okafor was making humanity's final appeal to the Council, a diplomatically futile gesture, but one that bought precious time. Message from Earth Command, his communications officer announced. General Williams sends one word. Proceed. The diplomatic efforts had failed. The vote would go against Earth, and intelligence suggested that Talari wouldn't wait for formal sanctions before taking action. Begin Daedalus activation sequence, Zhao ordered. Alert all captains. Chimera Protocol authorized. Throughout the Earth fleet, crews moved to battle stations. These weren't traditional military personnel, but explorers and scientists who had trained for a contingency they'd hoped would never come. On the Prometheus, Dr. Elena Chen monitored the quantum entanglement fields that would enable the impossible maneuvers to come. Daedalus grid is synchronizing, she reported. Quantum field stability at 93% and rising. Around Harmony Station, sensors on the alien vessels suddenly detected unusual energy patterns. Admiral, his communications officer called. We're being hailed by the Xalari flagship. On screen, Zhao replied calmly. Supreme Commander Krex's insectoid face appeared, mandibles twitching with barely contained anger. Human vessels, power down your systems immediately. You are in violation of consortium security protocols. What protocols would those be, Commander? Zhao asked mildly. The Council vote hasn't even concluded. Your defensive grid activation has been detected. Krex replied. This aggressive action confirms the Directorate's concerns. Power down or face the consequences. Zhao stood, straightening his uniform. Commander, Earth has the right to defend its installations against potential threats. Your fleet's positioning could be interpreted as just such a threat. This is your final warning. Krex chittered. The Directorate fleet is moving to disable your vessels. Resistance will only increase the severity of the response. As the transmission ended, Zhao turned to his crew. And so it begins. Initiate Chimera Protocol. All vessels, execute Pattern Labyrinth. Throughout the Earth fleet, quantum field generators activated, creating localized distortions in spacetime. The Prometheus seemed to shimmer, its outline becoming indistinct on enemy sensors. The Xelari fleet moved with mechanical precision, spreading into a standard encirclement formation designed to trap and isolate enemy vessels. Their tactics had been perfected over centuries of military doctrine. But they had never faced anything like this. As their targeting systems locked onto the Earth vessels, the human ships executed the impossible. The Prometheus appeared to split into 3 separate images, each responding differently to targeting scanners. The smaller Earth vessels accelerated at rates that should have crushed their structural integrity, executing turns that defied inertia. On the Xelari command ship, alarms blared as targeting computers failed to establish lock. Impossible, muttered a Xelari tactical officer. Their vessels are violating fundamental physical constants. Illusions and tricks. Krex snapped. Commence firing pattern Alpha. Saturate their positions. The Xelari fleet opened fire, energy weapons and projectiles streaming toward the Earth vessels, only to pass through sensor ghosts or be absorbed by localized distortions in spacetime created by the dataless grid. On the Prometheus, Zhao watched calmly as his fleet executed the carefully choreographed chaos of the Chimera Protocol. Phase 2, he ordered. Execute Pattern Hydra. The Earth vessels suddenly changed tactics, their apparent number multiplying as quantum field generators created convincing sensor echoes. The Xelari computers, programmed for logical target prioritization, began to fail as they detected impossible readings. Sir, reported the tactical officer, the Xelari formations are breaking down. Their targeting systems are attempting to compensate, but can't establish reliable locks. Zhao nodded. Selective countermeasures only. Target propulsion and weapons systems. No critical damage. The Earth fleet began precise strikes against the now confused Xelari vessels, disabling engines and weapons with surgical precision. The Prometheus itself executed a maneuver that appeared to phase it partially out of normal space, reappearing behind the Xelari flagship. Direct hit on the Xelari command ship's primary weapons array, reported the tactical officer. Their defensive shields are fluctuating. Hail them, Zhao ordered. Supreme Commander Krex appeared on screen, his compound eyes reflecting the chaos of his bridge. What trickery is this? He demanded. Your vessels move in ways that defy physics. Not our physics, Commander, Zhao replied calmly. Those primitive fantasies your experts dismissed. They inspired us to look beyond conventional limitations. Around them, the battle, if it could be called that, was ending almost as quickly as it had begun. 7 Xelari vessels had lost propulsion, another 12 reported weapons failures, and the remainder were in disarray, unable to establish effective targeting solutions against opponents that appeared to ignore the rules of space combat. Stand down your forces, Commander, Zhao continued. This demonstration was purposefully limited. We disabled rather than destroyed. That choice remains available to us. The implied threat hung in the silence between them. The Directorate does not surrender, Krex replied, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. This isn't about surrender, Zhao said firmly. It's about recognition. Humanity will not be contained by those who fear what they don't understand. We offer cooperation and exchange, but we will defend our right to develop on our own terms. On the screens behind Krex, Zhao could see auxiliary officers reporting more systems failures as the dataless grid systematically disabled their remaining offensive capabilities. The council must be reconvened, Krex finally said, mandibles clicking in agitation. This situation requires reassessment. Zhao nodded. We agree. Ambassador Okafor awaits your delegation. As the transmission ended, Alina approached him. It worked, she said quietly. The Chimera protocol performed beyond our simulations. For now, Zhao replied, watching the disabled auxiliary vessels on his display. But this is just the beginning. They'll study what happened here, adapt their tactics, and we'll continue to innovate, Alina countered with a smile. After all, imagination is our greatest strength. 1 month later, High Counselor Viridian stood with Admiral Zhao in the newly constructed Earth Embassy on Consortium Prime. Through the wide windows, they watched ships from a dozen species coming and going, commerce and diplomacy continuing despite the recent upheaval. The new security accords are being finalized, Viridian said. Equal oversight for all military technologies, regardless of species origin. The auxiliary objected, of course, but they're in no position to dictate terms after the incident. Zhao nodded. And the recognition of theoretical research pathways. Approved. Viridian confirmed. The Consortium Science Directorate is establishing a new division specifically to explore what they're calling alternative physics frameworks. He turned his 4 eyes to Zhao. Your Dr. Chen has been invited to lead it. She'll be pleased, Zhao replied. Integration rather than isolation was always our goal. Viridian was quiet for a moment, studying the human admiral. You know, it wasn't your technology that frightened the auxiliary most. Oh, it was your unpredictability. Your species makes intuitive leaps that our logical linear progression doesn't allow for. Viridian's expression shifted to what Zhao had learned was thoughtfulness in his species. We thought your myths were holding you back, fantasies distracting you from reality. Instead, they were guiding you to possibilities we couldn't see. Zhao smiled slightly. There's an old Earth saying, logic will get you from A to B, imagination will take you everywhere. You're Einstein. Viridian nodded. We've been studying your philosophers since the Aurora first arrived. Fascinating perspectives. A young human aide approached, offering a data tablet to Zhao. He scanned it quickly, then handed it back with a nod of thanks. Good news, Viridian inquired. The Prometheus begins its first official exploration mission tomorrow, Zhao replied. Charting the regions beyond the Consortium's mapped space. Seeking new frontiers, Viridian observed. Always pushing boundaries. That seems to be humanity's defining trait. Zhao looked out at the stars visible through the embassy windows. We're storytellers at heart, Counselor. We've always dreamed of what might lie beyond the next horizon. Now we get to find out. As they stood in comfortable silence, ships continued their cosmic dance beyond the windows, the familiar patterns of galactic civilization now permanently altered by humanity's arrival. The impossible had become possible, myths had become reality, and the stars themselves seemed somehow closer than before. The age of human legends had just begun.